Geminates Qal Perfect. So we'll start with the perfect for the Qal, and here is our paradigm. Now what we're going to do in the Qal is we're going to look at both the dynamic and the stative. So we'll start with this dynamic verb, savav. We'll look at Qal later. Qal meaning the verb Qal, not the binyan Qal. Okay, what do we see here? Well, in the third person, we see both geminates, right? Savav, savava, savavu. They're both there. Now, we also have a shortened form, but we have forms where we have both geminates visible. And this is related to the fact that you either have no suffix or you have vocalic suffix. So with vocalic suffixes, I think that's how I wrote the note, the perfect with vocalic suffixes, both geminates are visible. With consonantal suffixes, you get the dagesh forte. So with vocalic suffixes, like the a and the u, both geminates are visible. And these here are all the forms that have the consonantal suffixes, and there we see the dagesh forte, right? Now really, these ones here are pretty much strong. Pakad, savav. That form there is just like the strong verb. This one, savava, is very close to pakada. The only difference is that here we have a compound shava, and in the strong verb we have the simple shava, the vocal shava. And Ross says in his text that this may be because this ensures that you do pronounce both vavs. So savava versus savava, very close. Savava, savava. Maybe this helps to ensure that you have a little bit of a bigger vowel there. I don't know. In any case, that really is the only difference between the strong verbs and the geminates at this point. Okay, let's go forward because I have a different slide. Here I've highlighted the forms with the consonantal suffixes, and of course we recognize this as our second person switch, which again is my own way of talking about this pattern where as we move from third to second we have some changes. And what do we have? Well, we start with the comments here, which is just like our strong verbs, and we have reduction of the first root vowel. Okay? We've seen that before. So reduction of this first vowel. The theme vowel, patach, well, we don't really have reduction on that because we've lost our geminate, and so there isn't room for another vowel in there. So depending on how you look at it, it doesn't really apply. So we've reduced our first vowel, and we have added the helping vowel, holem vav. Now we saw this helping vowel, holem vav, in the holoverbs, remember? We saw it in the nifal and the the nifal and the hifil of the holoverbs. It wasn't there in the Qal, and actually it wasn't there in the hofal either. So we've seen this before, but it was in the nifal and the hifil of the holoverbs. So you can see how these are somewhat related to the holoverbs. And we see it all the way through. And of course we can't have a dagesh lene there because we're just in front of a very substantial vowel, and dagesh lene cannot exist in the presence of a vowel, so it takes off. So sabota, sabot, saboti, sabotem, saboten, sabonu. Okay. So in the perfect we have the second person switch. The prefix vowel shortens. Why did I call that a prefix vowel? There is no prefix in the perfect. Anyway, the first vowel. I probably made this mistake all the way through. Let's just call this first vowel. Excuse my mistake. The first vowel, first root vowel shortens, and the helping vowel, the holem is the helping vowel. In fact, it's a true holem vav there. Just like the holo, nifal and hifil, not the Qal, incidentally. Okay, let's look at the stative example. This is with Qal. And the first thing we note is that we have lost our lamed, our second lamed, so our geminate is gone. Just compare this again. In the dynamic form, we see the geminate in all the third forms, right? Savav, savava, savavu. recognizing we have an alternate, but we do see it in the third person forms. In the stative, we don't. It's dropped here completely. Here it's also dropped. We only have one. We have dagesh, but we don't see two laments, and the same here. And this is consistent with that table I showed you, where we went through all these verbs. All the dynamic ones had both geminates visible, and the stative ones were all reduced to monosyllabics. Because, of course, we were looking at this form, the lexical form. Now, remember I said before, if possible, the dagesh forte will be there in that geminate to indicate that originally there were two. And so we see it here. We see it here because we have something after it. We don't see it here because this geminate happens to be at the end of the word. So whenever you have the geminate at the end of the word, you can't have it, but otherwise it'll be there. So dagesh forte through all these forms, all of them, because you have something after it. And we just check here. So here we don't have it because there's nothing after it. Here we do. So even hidik yod is sufficient. We don't here, nothing there. We do here. All these forms we do. This one we don't because nothing there, right? Nothing at the end there. There is something there. Nothing there. We have endings here. Oh, look, I lied. But did I lie? Why does this one not have a dagesh forte? Kalna. Any idea? Well, my guess is that it's because it's a coal mine rule. Remember? If you have one of the letters from the coal mine series there, lamed being one of them, and it's supposed to have a dagesh forte, but it has a dagesh or a vocal shava under it, it can lose that dagesh forte. So at least we have a rule to explain that. No dagesh forte there or there because nothing after it. Here we do have something, so we see it, and here we don't need it, right? Two laments. Okay, this is the only form, I guess, of the stative where you see both laments. Interesting. Okay, so statives go monosyllabic, or they lose that second geminate. It's not visible, and you see it as dagesh forte if possible. What else do you want to say? Well, we have the second person switch, right? You see I've highlighted it here, but it's pretty limited. We've started with a patach, not the comets. Note here, in the dynamic form, this is really just like the strong pakad. We have the comets there as the first root vowel that marks the perfect. We have it also in these dynamic geminates. The stative geminates we don't. We have gone down to the patach. And so when you move to the second person, then there's nothing to reduce. Patach, patach. Comets, patach. So here you have reduction. Here you don't. So there's no change there. The gemination has already been lost here, so there's no change needed there either. So all you have is this holem vav that shows up. So it's really only one difference as we move from here to here. So dagesh forte in all forms, wherever possible. Limited second person switch is what I'm calling it. And the only thing you have is the holem helping vowel. There's no vowel reduction, okay, because you don't need to. It's already reduced here in the third person. And no loss of geminate. What I mean by that is you've already lost a geminate. So there's no change in the loss of geminate. Okay, I already mentioned this before, but I want to say it again. The patach marks the geminate in these two consonantal forms. A verb like kam will have the comets. That's supposed to be a comets. Or sam, okay. This is two vav, this is two yud. They both have the comets. So you see a comets with two letters like that, and you think it's a verb, be thinking hollow. If you see a patach, be thinking geminate. It's an important clue. Okay, is that it? That's it for Qal Perfect. Next, we will look at the imperfect.